My neighbor spent nearly €600 last year trying to stop his dog from chewing her own paws bloody. Shampoos, special food, 3 vet visits. Nothing held. The itching always came back within 2 weeks, along with that sour smell, like old bread left in a damp cellar. Then he walked up the hill to my place and asked me what I do, because in 50 years he had never once seen one of my dogs scratch like that. I handed him a box of baking soda from my kitchen shelf. He laughed at me. He is not laughing now. My name is Elias Marek. I am 68 years old, and I have spent my whole life as a shepherd in the high pastures. I keep livestock guardian dogs, the big white ones that live outside with the sheep in every kind of weather, and herding dogs that work in mud, rain, and snow from March until November. A dog like that cannot afford skin trouble. An itching dog is a distracted dog, and a distracted guardian dog gets a lamb killed. So we learned, the old shepherds before me and me after them, how to keep a dog's skin sound without a pharmacy. Not because we were clever, because we were poor, and the nearest vet was a day's walk down the mountain. I want to be clear about something before we go further. I am not a veterinarian. When a dog of mine has a torn ear or a fever or something I do not understand, I take it to one, and you should too. But this particular problem, the yeast problem, the itching and the smell and the greasy coat and the paw chewing, this one I know from 50 years of wet dogs. And what I am going to show you costs less than a cup of coffee. Let me tell you about the dog that taught me this, because I did not always know it either. Her name was Bora, a young guardian female I bought as a pup, maybe 40 years ago now. Big-boned, brave, good with the flock. But by her second summer, something went wrong with her. She started licking her front paws, then chewing them at night so hard I could hear it from inside the house, a wet, steady sound that never stopped. The fur between her toes turned rust brown from the licking. Her ears filled with dark, waxy dirt that smelled sour. Her whole coat took on a greasy feel, and when the wind blew off her back, you could smell her before you saw her. I did what a younger man does. I went down the mountain and bought what the shop sold me. A medicated shampoo, expensive stuff, and I washed her with it exactly as the bottle said. And it worked. For about 12 days. Then the licking started again, quieter at first, then just as bad. I bought the shampoo again. Same story. Worked, then failed. The third time I stood there in the yard with a half-empty bottle, a wet, miserable dog, and less money than I had in spring, and I understood something. I was renting a solution. I was not fixing anything. That autumn, an old shepherd named Thomas came through with his flock, heading to the lower pastures. He was past 70 then, and his dogs walked beside him with coats like polished wood, clean ears, quiet feet. I asked him about Bora, and he looked at her paws for a long time without saying anything, which is how old shepherds tell you that you have done something foolish. Then he went to his pack, took out a dented tin, and shook white powder into my hand. Baking soda, ordinary baking soda, the same you put in bread. He said, "The yeast is not the problem. The skin is the problem. Fix the skin, and the yeast has nowhere to live." I did not understand him then. I understand him now, and in all the years since, I have never heard anyone explain it as plainly as he did that evening. Every dog carries yeast on its skin, every single one, healthy or sick. It is a natural passenger, the same way there are bacteria on your own hands right now. On a healthy dog, that yeast sits quietly in small numbers and does no harm. The trouble starts when the skin gives it a feast, and a feast for yeast is two things: oil and moisture. Think about where your dog itches: between the toes, inside the ears, in the armpits, under the tail, the folds of the neck. Every one of those places is warm, damp, and slow to dry. A dog that gets wet in the rain, or swims, or sweats through its paws in summer, and then lies down in its bed with damp fur, is laying a dinner table. The yeast eats the skin oil, multiplies, and its waste irritates the skin. The irritated skin gets inflamed and produces more oil to protect itself. More oil means more food. More food means more yeast. Round and round it goes, and your dog chews its paws at 2 in the morning while you lie awake listening. Here is why the expensive shampoo kept failing me with Bora. That shampoo killed yeast. It did that job honestly, but it did nothing about the environment. The moment the yeast was knocked down, the skin was still oily, still damp in the folds, still the same welcoming in it had always been. The survivors moved back in and multiplied, and 12 days later I was back where I started. Killing the guest does not matter if you keep the room ready for him. The baking soda bath works differently, and this is why it held for 50 years on my mountain when the bottle from the shop could not hold for 2 weeks. It does not just knock the yeast back, it changes the room. It pulls the excess oil off the skin, dries the damp places, calms the itch so the dog stops chewing, and leaves behind a residue that makes the skin an unfriendly place to grow on. You are not renting a solution anymore. You are evicting the tenant and changing the locks. So let me give you the bath, exactly as I do it step by step. Get a pencil if you need one, but it is simple enough that you will remember it after one telling. You need 3 things: plain baking soda, the pure kind with nothing added, no baking powder, no scented laundry soda, just sodium bicarbonate from the grocery shelf, lukewarm water, and 2 old towels. That is the entire shopping list. The mixture is half a cup of baking soda for every 4 liters of lukewarm water. If you are in America, that is about 1 gallon. For a small dog, 4 liters is plenty. For a big guardian breed like mine, mix 12 liters with a cup and a half of soda in a large bucket or a wash tub. Stir it with your arm until every grain has dissolved and the water feels slightly slick between your fingers. Undissolved soda sitting in the bottom of the bucket does your dog no good. Now, the water temperature. This matters more than people think, and I will come back to why. Lukewarm, barely warm on the inside of your wrist, the way you would test milk for a baby. Not hot. Hot water strips the skin and tells it to make more oil, and more oil is exactly the dinner we are trying to take off the table. Wet the dog down to the skin first with plain lukewarm water. On a thick-coated dog, this takes longer than you expect. Part the fur with your fingers and make sure the water is reaching skin, not just sitting on top of the coat like rain on a thatched roof. Then pour the baking soda water over the dog slowly, cup by cup, working it down to the skin with your other hand. Do not scrub. Massage gently with the flat of your fingers. Pay special attention to the wet zones I named, between every toe, the armpits, the groin, under the tail, the neck folds, around the base of the ears, though never pour it inside the ear canal, and keep it well away from the eyes. For the ears, wet a cloth in the mixture, wring it so it does not drip, and wipe the inside of the ear flap only, the part you can see. And now the step everyone skips, and the step that separates the shepherds from the shoppers: contact time. Once the dog is soaked in the mixture, you wait. 3 full minutes minimum. 5 is better if the dog will stand for it. Talk to him, rub his chest, sing if nobody is watching. The soda needs those minutes on the skin to pull the oil and settle the itch. Rushing this step is like taking bread out of the oven after 5 minutes and wondering why it is dough. Here is the second thing that will feel wrong to you. When the time is up, you do not rinse with clean water. You heard me right. That thin film of baking soda left on the skin is doing the night shift. It keeps working after the bath is over, keeping the skin surface dry and inhospitable. Rinse it off with plain water, and you have thrown away half your work. The residue is invisible once the dog is dry, and a light chalky feel in the coat for a day is normal and harmless. One caution, though. A small number of dogs have skin that dries out easily. If your dog's skin looks red or flaky in the days after a bath, rinse lightly next time and shorten the soak. Watch your own dog, not the rule. Instead of rinsing, you press. Take your towels and press the water out of the coat. Press, do not rub. Rubbing irritates skin that is already angry. Squeeze the legs down like you are wringing a sock gently. Press the body, get the towel between the toes, and press there too. Then the dog must dry completely, completely. In summer, I let mine dry in the sun and the mountain wind, and there is no better dryer ever invented. In cold weather, keep the dog inside somewhere warm until every part of him is dry, especially the paws and armpits. A dog left damp after this bath is a dog you have half washed. Remember what feeds the yeast: moisture. Do not hand it right back. For paws that are already bad, chewed, and brown-stained like Bora's were, there is a stronger version. Mix baking soda with just enough water to make a paste like thick porridge. Press that paste gently between the toes. Let it sit for 5 minutes while you hold the dog or distract him with your voice. Then wipe it away with a damp cloth and dry the paw thoroughly. I did that for Bora every evening for the first week, alongside the full bath twice that week. With Bora, the night chewing went quiet on the 4th day. I remember it because the silence woke me. By the end of the 2nd week, the sour smell was gone from her coat. By the next spring, the rust-brown stain had grown out of the fur between her toes, and it never came back in the 11 years she worked beside me after that. 1 tin of baking soda. That was the whole bill. Over the years, people from the villages started coming up to ask me about this bath and about the other things we do for our dogs up here that cost nothing. What we feed, how we handle wounds in the field, how our dogs live to 14 and 15 working years. Eventually, my grandson sat me down and made me put all of it in one place, a small book called The Shepherd Dog Savings Manual. The bath you are learning today is one chapter. What we feed, how we treat wounds in the field, why our dogs work into their 15th year, that is the rest of it, written plainly, the way I would tell it across a table. The link is in the description below. Now, back to the bath, because there are 5 ways people ruin it, and I have watched every one of them happen. Mistake number 1, hot water. I have said it already, but I say it again because it is the most common. People think hot water cleans better. For grease on a pan, maybe. On a dog, hot water strips the skin panics and floods itself with new oil, and within days you have laid a richer table for the yeast than the one you cleared. Lukewarm. Test it on your wrist every time. Mistake number 2, rinsing off the soda. People cannot help themselves. It feels unfinished, leaving something on the dog. But I promise you, that residue is the medicine that works while you sleep. Leave it. Mistake number 3, letting the dog stay damp. A man does this bath perfectly, then lets the dog wander out into the evening grass or lie down wet in its bed in a cold hallway. Damp fur pressed against skin for hours is the exact condition that started the whole problem. The bath is not finished until the dog is dry to the skin. If you take away only one habit from an old shepherd, take this one, because it matters on ordinary days too, not just bath days. Mistake number 4, scrubbing broken skin. If your dog has chewed himself raw, if there are open sores, cracks that bleed, wet oozing patches, do not put baking soda on that and do not scrub it. Broken skin is past the point where a kitchen remedy belongs, and soda on an open wound stings and does harm. That dog needs a vet first. Once the skin has closed and healed, then the bath becomes your tool for making sure you never end up back there. I am blunt about this because I have seen a man make a suffering dog worse out of stubbornness, and there is no pride in that. Mistake number 5, and the one that defeats the most people. Quitting after one bath. One bath knocks the yeast down. It does not change the years of habit that built the problem. For a dog with an active yeast trouble, the rhythm is this: 2 baths a week for the first 2 weeks, then 1 bath a week for a month. Then, once the itching is gone and the smell is gone and the coat feels clean and dry to your hand, you drop to once every 2 or 3 weeks as plain maintenance. Some of my dogs in dry summers go a month or more between baths. The dog will tell you. The first quiet scratch of a hind leg at the ear, the first faint sour note when he shakes off, that is your signal, and you bathe before it becomes a problem instead of after. And between the baths, there are 3 small habits that do more than the bath itself because they starve the yeast every single day. First, the drying habit. Anytime the dog comes in wet, from rain, from snow, from a swim in the stream, you towel him, especially the paws and between the toes. 30 seconds with an old towel by the door. Up here, a wet dog gets dried the way a wet rifle gets dried, without discussion, because we know what damp costs. Second, the paw wipe. In muddy seasons, keep a cloth by the door, dampen it in a weak soda mixture, a tablespoon in a liter of water, wipe the paws and between the toes when the dog comes in, then dry them. 10 seconds per paw. The paws are where yeast makes its first camp, and this habit means it never gets to pitch the tent. Third, the ear glance. Once a week, lift each ear flap and look and smell. A healthy ear is pale pink and has almost no smell. If you see dark wax building or catch that sour, yeasty odor, wipe the visible part of the flap with the soda cloth, dry it, and step your bath schedule up 1 notch for a couple of weeks. You will catch trouble a month before it becomes a vet visit. That is the whole system. A box of baking soda, lukewarm water, 3 minutes of patience, and a towel by the door. My neighbor with the €600 vet bills has been running it since last summer. His dog sleeps through the night now, and so does he. When he asks me why nobody told him this before, I tell him what old Thomas would have told him. Nobody makes money telling you to fix the skin. They make money selling you something to kill the yeast over and over every 12 days, forever. I still have that dented tin Thomas gave me. It sits on the shelf above my stove, empty for 30 years now, and I keep it there the way you keep a photograph. Every dog I have owned since Bora has been washed out of an ordinary grocery store box that costs about the same as it did when I was a young man standing in a yard with a miserable wet dog, learning that the answer had been in my kitchen the whole time. If this helped you, do one thing. Subscribe, because next time I will show you what we shepherds feed a dog with a bad gut. using 3 things you already have in your pantry. Your dog is lying somewhere near you right now. Go check his paws. You will know within a minute whether you needed this video.